Hey everyone, it is a beautiful day in Cleveland. Welcome to the show Sharing a Bowl with, presented by Superior Pho. I am your host, Chris Nguyen, second generation owner of the restaurant, and I have a very special guest today, Claudine Nguyen.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here.
Great, welcome Claudine. Claudine is the former contact engineer of ExxonMobil in Joliet, Illinois. She has since joined our restaurant,
Woohoo.
Superior Pho, and it's especially special because she's also my wife.
Yeah.
So Claudine, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and why you decided to join the restaurant business?
Yeah. So growing up, I've always been a nerd. I've always been in love with math and science. That's actually why I took engineering in college. But on the side too, I've always been a foodie. I've always loved being in the kitchen, making different types of food. And so, when the opportunity presented itself, transitioning from engineering to being a restaurateur, I jumped headfirst with you. Just because I feel like all of my skills from engineering definitely could be used here at the restaurant. And I wasn't wrong.
Yeah, every day,
Yeah.
math and science.
Math and science every day.
So, like so many of our other guests that we'll be inviting to the show, Claudine and I met actually here at Superior Pho. And it's a funny story, actually, because you must have thought, that I was just the cashier, I think.
I also thought you were very annoying.
When we first met, Claudine would just one-word me. I remember, I think it went on for 2 weeks where
Yeah.
she'd come in for takeout. And with so many other customers, I always make small talk to try to make them feel comfortable while they're waiting or just be personable so they enjoy their experience. And
And I'm coming from an engineering lab. I've been working for 10 hours, doing more math and science.
yeah.
So I'm just here for food. That was my mentality at the time.
Yeah, the first time I saw Claudine, I was making small talk and I said, "So do you go to school around here?" And her answer was, "Yep." And I was like, "Okay, like CSU or Case or where do you go?" And then she answered that she went to CSU. And this whole one-wording process continued on for about 2 weeks until finally I was able to crack the shell by starting. She came in for takeout, and I was like, "So you're a fourth-year student at CSU studying chemical engineering. What's next?" And I remember you said,
Boeing. Yeah.
Yeah, Boeing.
Yeah.
Boeing.
Because at the time I was my research was in aerospace engineering, and so I was looking at Boeing as a potential employer. And so I said, "Yeah, no, I'm trying to get into Boeing." And
I told Claudine about how I had a fraternity brother from college who was a senior design engineer, and that maybe he might be able to get a foot in the door for her. And so I did what?
and so you wrote an email to your fraternity brother.
Oh, you're missing a very important part here. I told her to text me her email.
Oh yeah.
Because she wanted to write down her email on a piece of paper, but I told her I'd lose it. I'd likely lose it.
I was trying to be very professional. I was trying to make sure you got my email. And when you said you were going to text me instead, I gave you that look like, text me instead.
Well, it's true. If you wrote it down on a piece of paper, there's a possibility I would have lost it. Right? Anyway, so you shoot me your resume. I forward the resume to my fraternity brother. And then what? 2 weeks passed, something like that. 2 weeks passed. I'm starting to get nervous, over promising and under delivering. And I followed up with him. And at that time, I read your resume and I was thoroughly impressed. And I'm going to share this little bit about you, but Claudine actually ended up graduating as the valedictorian of Cleveland State University in 2016. So bravo to you. But I reached back out to my fraternity brother who said HR was processing your application and resume, and I was nervous, so I reached out to you and I said, I remember clearly, I said, look, if you get an interview, you owe me dinner. And if you don't get the interview, I'll take you out to dinner.
Very smooth.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah, right. The rest is history.
And then the rest was history.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, folks, Claudine actually saved Superior Pho. A lot of people don't. I mean, most people would not know that. But when we took over the restaurant from my father, first generation owner, we lost some key talent. And the honest to God truth is, without Claudine, Superior Pho would not exist today. It wouldn't. Between Claudine's talent and just ability, her prowess, Superior Pho wouldn't exist. I couldn't do that by myself.
You also have to give yourself a little credit because it's just not me, right? It's our entire team here at Superior Pho. Although my role was pretty big in terms of keeping the restaurant alive, it wasn't just me. I couldn't have done it without you guys.
I appreciate Claudine's humility, but yeah, the truth is, I was just, we were drowning together, and Claudine was the lifeline. Claudine, why don't we talk about some of the craziness that's happened over the past year?
Yes, let's.
There was one day in the recent past where we were just extremely busy, both due to the volume of the restaurant and things outside of the restaurant that demanded my attention. And that day, we had some crazy things happen. Can you share with the audience what that was like for you? What happened?
Yeah, I don't really know how to talk through the fire and the flood that happened that day.
It's all kind of blocked out.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it I try to forget and just kind of tuck away in the depths of my mind. But it was one of those unbelievable days, right? Like you watch. Have you ever seen The Bear? That TV show. They have scenes where everything's chaotic at the restaurant, and then you have more chaos that happens in the background. I felt like I was in an episode of The Bear when those things happened. Especially like as busy as we are, it was challenging to handle a fire and also address a flood in my kitchen, and also make sure people are still getting their pho under 5 minutes.
Well, I remember it got so smoky in the dining room that some people actually left. And I think in total, after we looked at our cameras and did the count, I think we actually had 12 people who actually got up from their seats and left. And so I was worried that, that would really affect our sales.
Oh, you know what else happened that day? A few people also called off because they were sick.
Yeah, right.
So we were actually short-staffed, both back of the house and front of the house. So for people who work in the industry, you know how we probably felt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And for that to be one of the busiest days on record, and also have the flood and the fire, absolutely insane. And it wasn't our first flood and fire, right? Like
That's
a year
right.
ago, we had it wasn't on the same day, but we had a flood and a fire, um, and that first flood actually was so bad because when I tried to shut off the water at the shutoff valve broke.
Yeah. And then water was spewing everywhere
Right,
in the kitchen.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
No,
awful.
but yeah, the difference between those days is you have one event happen, like either a flood or a fire, or a very busy day, but it's a trifecta of all those three that's happening during that day that made it an insane day.
Yeah.
The cool part about it, though, is to me personally, is having you as a not really a saving grace, but like a partner essentially. Like, hey, I am drowning. I can't do this anymore. I think I remember like almost crying on the phone, or I might have been crying.
Yeah, I think you were
I
crying.
think I was crying.
Get here now.
No, yeah, yeah. That's how I felt. Yeah, no, I think I was definitely crying because I was like, I can't. There's only so much stress I could handle. So having someone like you run the restaurant, run the shop with me, is super helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I feel the same way. And it's really crazy because and I think actually we got really lucky that day because we didn't get any real complaints other than about the smoke, maybe. But, there are customers, and we love all of our customers, but, they're paying customers and they expect a really good experience. And sometimes when there's a flood and a fire and we're short-staffed, they don't get to see that, right? And
No.
so their expectation is, well, we're paying customers and we deserve the same experience, which I 100% agree with. But on the back end, we're just like, oh my God, like all these crazy things we just went through. And we have to provide the same level of quality in terms of service, presentation, and quality of food and all that stuff.
Well, I think that empathy is higher with people who have worked in the restaurant industry, like food and beverage industry, right? Like if you've lived it, there's a higher likelihood that you're understanding of what's happening, and you're a little bit more forgiving, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
No, totally. And shout out to all of our service industry workers. You guys have been super, super supportive, and
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
you guys are awesome. We love you. We have the utmost respect for you guys, and hope that you also tune in to this podcast to hear all these awesome stories. So, what else? What else, Claudine? I think we should share about some of the really cool stuff we've been working on in the back of house because customers don't exactly see that, but they experience it. And I'm really, really proud of how far we've come in just a year. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So you don't have to ask me if I want to talk about it. I always love talking about our progress at the restaurant. I think that a lot of people don't know is you have all these ideas, lists of awesome improvements that you've had for many, many years, and just it's tough to implement them in your previous situation, right? You were running the shop with your father, and it's just a different time. So after we've taken over, we started, really thinking about what technology we could bring to the restaurant, what improvements we should focus on, what are our core values as a business. And, for example, we implemented a POS system that fires directly to the kitchen, which in the past we've never had. We've only had printed orders, right? And a tiny little ticket where 3 stations have to go look at it and make sure they actually check off all of the orders.
Don't even get me started on how for so many years we had pen and paper.
Right? That's insane. That's insane to me. But yeah, I think if I was to describe this era for Superior Pho, it's the implementation era, because a lot of these, quality control things that we've talked about, from like making sure we're grilling our pork correctly, making sure we have the clearest broth or the best quality broth that we could provide. All of this you've had. In kind of the back corner, just because, again, you're dealing with fires and floods every day. But now we've had a little bit more time to really drive the implementation forward. So those are the only few things, like those are just a few things I could think about off the top of my head. Technology and quality. Yeah.
Yeah, along with the technology, I think the whole premise of that was to address certain key issues like the number of mistakes that we were making, right? We've had healthy volume for a while, and every so often mistakes would be made and orders would get messed up. And with the technology that you've implemented, we've been able to reduce those mistakes by probably 90%, and then increase our overall throughput, from back of the house to, for delivering our food to the table. We've been able to increase the speed at which
Yeah.
everyone gets their food,
Yeah.
even when we're completely packed.
I think the coolest compliment we got when we were starting to implement all the changes was when someone orders an appetizer and they're still thinking about their main dish, and the appetizers come like, I don't know, 30 seconds after it's fired in the kitchen. 30 or I don't know, a minute.
Yeah.
A minute.
Right.
But those things, our customers definitely
Appreciate
that.
for sure.
Yeah.
For those who have been dining with us for a long time, one of the bottlenecks that we had in the past was if we were really, really busy, especially during our lunch rushes, a line would build up at the register and folks would have to wait 5 minutes, or if we were extremely busy, 10 minutes just to pay. And now, shout out to Toast, our point of sale system, we're able to crush that line in like 3 minutes max. People aren't waiting just to pay anymore. So it's a quick in and out, both with your food and with your payment. Little things like that have improved the customer experience. I think just when you're hungry, you get your food faster, and if you're in a rush, you can get out more quickly.
Yeah.
Whether it's to catch a show or catch the game downtown, it doesn't matter. Or just getting back to work from a quick lunch break. And I think a lot of people have really appreciated those changes, which you have headed up. So
Thanks. That's so nice.
well, it's true. Process improvement lead.
Yeah. That's my made up title for myself.
That's okay. Geez. I guess let's talk about what is to come. What are you looking forward to in the journey of Superior Pho? Because we have a lot of cool things that are happening, including, our we're working towards an expansion, an additional location. What are you excited about?
I am very excited about bringing the taste of Superior Pho in other places. And to me, it's not just about expansion. It's about letting people experience what Cleveland has experienced for the past 22 years. And that's a warm hug in a bowl, essentially, right? You come into Superior Pho, you get get a pho and you're transported immediately to. I personally, I'm transported immediately to Vietnam because of the flavors, the subtle notes in the pho that you can't really get anywhere. And so it's a unique experience in and of itself, and I'm very excited to share that with, dare I say, Ohio, the rest
Sure.
of Ohio.
With the country.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest stories was when some folks from out of state came back to Cleveland. They said they'd moved out of state and they were wearing one of the Superior Pho shirts, and someone in their respective cities had pointed them out and said, "Hey, are you from Cleveland?" And they said, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" And the other person was like, "Well, I saw you wearing the Superior Pho shirt. I love that place."
That's so awesome.
You know, and a couple of people, one from Michigan and one from California, actually told me about that. So
Well, Superior Pho has been part of the fabric of Cleveland for a long time. I think it's actually worth sharing the history of Superior Pho and how your dad started it, how it was growing up with it, because that was all you and your dad.
oh my gosh. I still remember when Turbo 4, which was the car parts and bubble tea cafe, was here, and I want to say I was 15, and this would have been back in, 2003-ish? So I was like 14 or 15, and there were no rules back then. We had no idea what we were doing as far as operating a restaurant. You know, we'd only been open for a year or two. And I was actually waiting tables in a Hawaiian shirt because back in middle school, those were all the rage, or middle school, high school. And I would actually go up to tables with my Hawaiian shirt unbuttoned.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right? And, what can I get for you today? So we've come a really long way. But yeah, I mean, so much has changed in Asia Town over the years, We've seen so many businesses come and go, and even the neighborhoods evolved quite a bit. It used to be predominantly Chinese, and now it's getting mixed up a little bit, which is really cool. We have a lot more Latinos in the area and other ethnicities other than just Chinese, because growing up it was predominantly Chinese. But now it's Asia Town because there are so many other Asian ethnicities that have sort of called this area home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really cool seeing how we're evolving. It's really cool that for the past 20 years, our pho has not changed, and yet different generations are still enjoying it all the same. And for me, it's having an opportunity to share my grandma's food, even though she's long passed. God bless her soul. She passed in 2004, I believe.
Thank you, Grandma, for the recipe.
2003, 2004.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like a warm hug.
Yeah.
It's a hug that's shared with all of our customers from my grandma, so to speak. So it was a long time coming.
Right. You want to transition to the history? Let me see. Yeah, so that's kind of the story of how we met. I am curious, though, over the years, how did you see Superior Pho evolve? Because obviously I wasn't there when your dad first started the company. What's the story behind Superior Pho?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. My father actually mortgaged his house to start the restaurant, and when I was a kid, we'd drive 6 hours to Washington D.C. or 6 hours to Chicago just for a good bowl of pho.
It's a long time.
Yeah, and he said, this is bullshit. We should not have to drive 6 hours one way or the other for a good bowl of pho. And back then there was Kim's in Lakewood, but he was often busy, and it was either hard to get a table. I think there were all of 3 or 4 tables in his tiny little dining room, and and then yeah, and then he closed. I think he retired, and then that was it, you know. And then there was Min An, but Min An was a Vietnamese restaurant. They weren't a pho house. So I think aside from Kim's, we were one of the first legit pho houses in all of Cleveland. And I didn't have any aspirations to join the business either. But in 2010, having just finished my undergraduate degree in finance, there weren't a whole lot of finance jobs. The market was flooded with finance people from the 2007, Great Recession that was sort of fueled by finance people, the finance industry. So, yeah, that's why I ended up joining the business back in 2010.
You mean as a kid you didn't dream to run the shop?
If it meant serving in my Hawaiian shirt throughout my adulthood, maybe I would have considered it, but I didn't see it that way. No, but yeah, my father mortgaged the house back then and started this restaurant, and he had this story that he would always tell me about how one day they messed up a whole big vat of pho, and he was like, if we serve this pho and it's gross, it's not quite right, we're going to lose customers. And I can't risk that having mortgaged my house.
Yeah.
So they dumped the entire day's worth of work, closed up shop for the day, and said, we'll try again tomorrow. And that's what they did. And, sort of that dedication to quality has been carried forward through this generation. We still take it extremely seriously. Yeah, a lot of good things abound. We're working hard every single day to tighten up our processes and give Cleveland something to be proud of. So many people, they're like, oh, if you want good pho or good Vietnamese, you got to go to California, or you've got to go to Texas or Florida or New York or wherever have you. But my aim, I think our collective aim now, is to give Cleveland something to be proud of and say, no, you know what? If you want good pho, look no further than Cleveland, Ohio. And we're really proud to inspire so many other people within our community to do the same. So you'd think I'd know this by now, but I don't. Tell me, what is your favorite bowl of pho? And how do you dress it up?
I like our number 4 pho. A small number 4 is my go-to, which is a pho with the rare eye round and tripe, because I grew up with tripe. And you know this about me. I love spicy things. And so I love my pho with a lot of jalapenos and sriracha and hoisin on the side.
I can't. I don't even know how. There was one time Claudine and I were having dinner together, and I think my mom brought over some freshly grown Carolina Reapers, and Claudine just started popping them like cherries.
Oh, so good. So good.
Or you're like slightly insane. I don't know.
Yeah. What about you? What's your favorite pho?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I think more commonly than not, I get our probably the number 1 or the number 12. Number 1 is like the traditional pho, right? It's got the brisket and it's slow cooked for hours. And if you actually have just a really, really good bowl of the number 1, the brisket pho with nothing else in it, it really does take you back to a special time in Vietnam. And I say a special time because pho has changed in Vietnam. Right. We went in 2019 and we ate pho all over the country, and it was just different than what we grew up with.
Well, I think part of that is globalization and just it's just a different time. So as recipes evolved, ingredients are introduced and other ingredients are left out. So
Yeah, you say that, but it's like worse now,
oh no,
right? Like when
I
we
think you're
went.
spoiled because their pho is really good.
No, I mean, look, we were in southern Vietnam, we were in northern Vietnam, and we ate at several places that were considered popular both by locals and not locals. Um, and we had street food cart vendors, and we ate at restaurants, and we tried pho everywhere. And honestly, I can't remember having a memorable bowl there.
I think we just got unlucky that that trip, but I remember eating really good pho in California.
Yeah, actually, shout out to, I think it's what, Pho 79 in Garden
Yeah,
Grove. They were really, really good, you guys.
it's
Really, really good.
yeah, it's the pho places with numbers on
This,
them.
yeah. Well, not in our case,
Yeah,
but
right.
I think we definitely have a superior bowl here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the number one. Just if I'm being like what's the word? A purist, right? If I'm being a purist, and then number 12 because I get all the meats. That's our pho đặc biệt, and that đặc biệt means special in Vietnamese. So that's our special pho, and you get tripe, and you get the brisket, and you get the eye round, and you also get flank and shank cuts, which are fattier and more gristly, but it's like a flavor experience, right? If you're a quote unquote foodie, and I say that because a lot of people hate that word now. But if you really enjoy food and like to have all of
Yeah.
the textures and the flavors, that's probably the one to go. And then Vietnamese people, we typically don't add anything to the broth, and bean sprouts even. Did you know that in the north they don't even use bean sprouts? It's
No.
actually more of a southern thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
fun fact.
right. And we definitely don't add sauces to the broth before tasting it. Um, I mean, guys, you can have your pho however you want to have your pho, um, but but typically we don't add sauces to the broth, at least not until we've tasted it, and then usually the sauces like the hoisin sauce and the sriracha is meant for dipping the pieces of meat in your pho, but not actually pouring it into the broth. I mean, you're welcome to do that if that's how you want it.
But there is no proper way of eating pho,
No,
really.
no.
I think it's kind of just how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you're a traditionalist or a purist or whatever, and there's a place for that. But I think one of the beauties of food is evolution of food over time.
Yeah.
Unless you end up with a worse product, like I said, when we went back to Vietnam, we just didn't have a really good bowl. And I think it's really cool too that our bowl is my grandma's recipe, because that's like pre-Vietnam War era, pre-1975, 1976, when all of the Vietnamese refugees were fleeing Vietnam due to the war. And so really you're actually tasting a piece of history that, who knows, and maybe a couple of generations may not even exist anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because you're not only transported to Vietnam, but also like a specific time period, like you said. And it's the preservation of that recipe that makes it even more special, right? Like over the years, something could change, like most,
Yeah. No,
most
totally.
things. But it's the dedication to that recipe that makes Superior Pho really, really special.
Right. And I read recently that the people who fled Vietnam during the 1970s, their language is largely dying out because they are dying out. And I was like, I was sort of, I don't know, interested in why that was. So I was reading more, and when those folks came over in 1975, they spoke Vietnamese. Well, in Vietnam, the language continued to evolve, right? But those people, having no one to speak to other than each other, the refugees, even
Yeah.
though there are probably millions of them, they only had each other and their children to speak to, while their children are learning English, and with each subsequent generation, Vietnamese is not being passed on, that Vietnamese. Um, and their, their dialect or whatever, is dying with them, because the folks who are in Vietnam have introduced new slang, new words to the language, right? As globalization occurs, there are words for things like the internet, or different technologies that don't get passed on in the 1975 generation in the United States or other countries wherever refugees fled. And so um, that piece of like Vietnamese dialect is just not, it's dying out with that generation. So my parents and their friends will be the last to have spoken Vietnamese the way it was spoken when they were when they left.
I think that's a challenge for your generation. I say your generation because you're
Old.
no, I meant, as you carry the restaurant from your father's generation to your generation, and then in the future our kids' generation, it's your role is very important in preserving that. Because like you said, if you don't have the next generation to speak the language, then the language dies. It's the same thing for our restaurant. If you don't have a generation that can carry through with the same quality and dedication, and someone who's just willing to work at the restaurant, the restaurant dies. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There's duty to legacy here. There's duty to legacy, and sharing our history and sharing our food with everyone. Well, thank you so much, Claudine, for sharing your time with us today and how you take your bowl of pho.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute awesome time. I love sharing our experience here at Superior Pho, and I'm so excited about all the guests that you have yet to invite here. So tune in.
Yeah, thank you. To everyone that's listening, definitely tune in. You'll be able to hear more on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Google Podcasts, and make sure you like and follow all of our social media for updates. We have some really interesting folks coming on, and we look forward to sharing everyone's stories with all of you. So until next time, this is your host, Chris Nguyen, with Sharing a Bowl With, presented by Superior Pho. Have a wonderful day, everyone.